This week we start the new sefer of Bamidbar, and it's an interesting sefer. It's an exciting sefer. It's called Sefer HaPikudim. It's the sefer of the numbering. So let's just understand a little bit what's happening, because at the beginning of the parsha, the Torah speaks about all the different Nesiim. So the Torah says, "Vadaber Adonai Moshe Bamidbar Sinai b'Ol Moed b'Echad l'Chodesh Hasheni." On the first, the Hashem speaks to Moshe after they've come out of Mitzrayim on the first day of the second month in the second year. So it's Iyar, and Hashem speaks to him, and he says to him the following: "So et rosh kol adat bnei Yisrael l'mishpachotam levet avatam b'yisma shemot kol zachar legilgalotam." So it's time to take a census. And where does the census come from? The census comes from Miben Esrim Shana V'Mala, that it's from those who are 20 years and up, called Yotzei Tzava B'Yisrael Tifkedu Otam. All those who are going to be part of those who are able to bear arms, to go out into the army, those are the people you have to count. And then it says that each one of the tribes needs to have like an associated head of the house, who's going to be the one who's going to be part of the counting and is going to be responsible for that. And the Torah then starts telling who are those people that are going to be chosen. And what I'd like to look at is a couple of aspects. The first thing is that the way the Torah brings the order. So it starts with Reuven, Shimon, then it goes Reuven, Shimon, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun. So obviously we understand that these are the children of Leah. These are the first children that Yaakov has. Levi is missing, which we'll get to at some point. After the children of Leah, then the Torah starts speaking about Livnei Yosef. It speaks about the children of Yosef. Now remember, Yosef is divided up into two Shvatim. There's Ephraim and Manasseh. We'll have to understand how that works. And then it's Binyamin, and then it starts Dan, Asher, Gad, Naphtali. Not necessarily the order in which they were born, but in another order. So let's try and understand that first. And the Ibn Ezra gives us the key to that, because the Ibn Ezra explains that when it gets to the tribe of Yosef, the Ibn Ezra says two things. First, he says that the children of Yosef are mentioned after the children of Leah. Why? Because even though the other children are older than Yosef, obviously Rachel's status is greater than that of Bilhah and Zilpah. So therefore, we find that. Now, why is it? However, if everything else has been in chronological order, in birth order, but now when it comes to Yosef, it starts with Ephraim and goes to Manasseh. So obviously that links back to the brocha that we say every Friday night when we give to our sons, right? And which Yaakov gave to the children of Yosef, Yesimcha Elohim ki Ephraim and Manasseh. The question is, why is it that it starts here with Ephraim and then goes to Manasseh, whereas later on in the Torah, when there's another counting, as they're about to go into the land of Israel, that the counting starts with Manasseh rather than Ephraim. So the Chasam Sofer says, it's very simple. The Chasam Sofer says that the reason is because Ephraim represents the spirit, the highest level of spiritual aspiration. He represents the learning of Torah, the desire to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the spiritual realm, whereas Manasseh represents the desire to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu much through the more physical realm, through Parnasa, through working in the world itself. And explains the Chasam Sofer that at this point in time, whilst they're traveling through the Midbar, the focus of Am Yisrael is not on Parnasa. We know they get the man and they get the water, they get everything that they possibly would need. So therefore, their focus really is on achieving great spiritual heights. And since that's the focus now, Ephraim is counted first. But as they're on the border of Eretz Yisrael, in Arvei Moab, in the plains of Moab, they're about to cross over, then the whole focus has to change, because as they go into the land of Israel, they can no longer be totally pointed onto the spiritual realm, but they have to understand that they've got to work the land. That's part of the living in the land of Israel is not only just sitting and learning as they did in the man, which is really reflects on what's going to happen with the Meraglim when we get there, where their focus was really about, they didn't want to have to go and start digging the land. They just wanted to learn the Torah, right? So therefore, those are the different types of the countings. But what is interesting is that it reflects a certain nuance or duality within Yosef himself, that it's so important that we have to take that on, and that's such an important part of who we aspire to be. That sometimes in our lives we've got to be a Yosef who is an Ephraim, and sometimes in our lives we've got to be the Yosef who is the Menashe, and we have to decide what it is that we are going to be taken on and when at the right time. And often we spend our times aspiring to be the Menashe. The Menashe is the person who's working, who's making a parnasa, who's working hard, is giving the tzedakah, doing all the things that person needs to do, but putting so much effort into the attainment of physicality in order to achieve spirituality, or to achieve certain spiritual goals, while at the same time missing the fact that there also needs to be a spiritual growth plan, not just a physical growth plan. And really what the Chasam Sofer is saying is that Yosef brings the two together and teaches us to find the paradox, teaches us to find the nuance, and teaches us to find the balance. And that's a fundamental lesson. I think that sometimes we forget that the same effort that we put into our achievement on our physical level, we also have to put an achievement on our spiritual level. I know I'm guilty of it. It's so much easier to find, to get the best cup of coffee. It's not always easy to get the best Shmona Esrei. So that's something I think that is being taught to us. But what I'd like to go back on and look at is just some of these names are very strange. And the Paneach Raza, who's one of the more Kabbalistic commentaries on the Torah. So what he wants to understand is, where do these names come from? Because the names they all have something about El or Eli or Shaddai or some of the names of Hashem within them, but where do they come from and where are they born out of? So he says the following. Let's start with the name of the Elitzur ben Shteur. Elitzur ben Shteur is the son of Ruvain. And the son of Ruvain, Elitzur ben Shteur, means Elitzur, God is my rock. Ben Shteur is a very strange word, because the word Shteur could be read as Shaddai Or. Shaddai is one of Hashem's names, and Or is light. So comes along the Paneach Raza, and we'll just give a couple of examples, because I just think that they're quite astounding how he says that, how he brings them out. He says, let's understand that the reason why the Ruvain's Nasi is called Elitzur ben Shteur is because we need to remember that Ruvain had a bit of an issue with the Maaseh Bila. Remember, it says that he moved his bed, or he moved the bed of Bila from Leah. There's a whole different story which is quite confusing exactly what he did. But whatever it was, he did something wrong. But we understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was moichel him. Hashem forgave him. Where do we see that? That's where he says, Ze Elitzur. Ma hatzur hazeh sovel kol binyan. In the same way as a rock is able to withstand all building on top of it. Kach Eli sovel oni umachali ba'asoisi tshuva. So too HaKadosh Baruch Hu is able to withstand the terrible thing that I did with my father. He was able to hold it and to be moichel me when I did tshuva. Ben Shteur, why did Ben Shteur? Shemimi lamad Ruvain lasot tshuva. Who did Ruvain learn how to do tshuva from? He learned it from Yehuda. Because remember, Yehuda had commanded when Tamar was found to be pregnant, and nobody knew who had impregnated her. So Yehuda said it's completely inappropriate. She must be thrown into the fire. If you remember, she then shows what it was that the Doron, the stuff that Yehuda had given her, and Yehuda realizes that it was him. He does tshuva at that point in time, saves her life, and becomes a hero, the hero of tshuva for all generations. And in doing that, it says Shaddai Ur. Shaddai Loshen Hashloche says that the word Shaddai doesn't mean God in this case. It means it's the language of throwing in. So it's Elitzur ben, the one who was going to throw her into the fire. Why? Because Reuven became a Talmud of Yehuda. Yehuda, the great leader of the Jewish people, is the one who taught Reuven how to do tshuva properly and how to understand that at the end of the day, when HaKadosh Baruch, if a person does tshuva properly, HaKadosh Baruch is able to sovel, is able to withstand, is able to tolerate the going off the path. And so therefore, he calls the Nasi Elitzur ben Shdeur. Shimon is a difficult one. Shimon Shlumiel ben Suri Shaddai. So who is Shlumiel ben Suri Shaddai? Who is this person? The Chizkuni points out that Shlumiel ben Suri Shaddai, who is the Nasi of Shimon, he says is also known as Zimri ben Salu, or also known as Shaul ben Aknanit. So Zimri ben Salu is the person who did that terrible act with Cosby, the Moabite woman, and Shaul ben Aknanit. Shaul ben Aknanit is Shaul, the son of the Aknanit, who swears in the name of Hashem inappropriately. So what the Chizkuni is showing from the Gemara that from the tribe of Shimon, there is a potential to really go off the path in a very profound way. And that's very concerning. But comes along the Panach Raza and he says, so why is he called Shmuel ben Suri Shaddai? So he says the following. Even though Shimon did this terrible act, Shimon being the tribe, did this terrible act with Zimri and Shittim later on. Natan lo el shalom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is prepared to give him El, that's Hashem, Shalom, Shlumi El. So therefore you have the Shlumi El, is a combination of El Shalom, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is prepared to forgive him and connect him to Ruvain. Why is that? Because Ruvain and Shimon are both the tribes that receive Hashem's rachamim on the basis of the fact that that they do the tshuva. And why is it called Ben Suri Shaddai? So here says the Panach Raza, because she'eshlichu v'samchu etzel tsuri, that again, Ruvain now becomes the example of tshuva for the tribe of Shimon, and they become the rock on which Shimon is able to hold on to. And so therefore, Shmuel ben Suri Shaddai becomes Ruvain. Shimon is connected to that rock. Nachshon ben Aminadav, who is the head of the tribe of Yehuda, and we'll finish on this one, says explains the Panach Raza ben Aminadav is that Aminadav. A nadova is something which one volunteers, something which one gives of themselves. And Nachshon, he says, it's like it's a desire to be nichshol, he's prepared to fall if it means that he's going to be able to give towards his people. And that really ultimately is why Nachshon ben Aminadav is the Nasi of the tribe of Yehuda, who is the leader of the people, because he's prepared to be nachshol. He's prepared to fall down if it means that he has to give himself up for his people. And in that way, we find the greatest Kiddush Hashem that comes out of Yehuda, who is the person who ultimately leads the Jewish people through the sea, and ultimately is going to be the king for all perpetuity of the Jewish people. Just some indication on the names. Often we read these names, and these names don't mean much to us. But the Panach Raza wants us to realize that in each one of these names is not only the person, but in each one of these names really seems to be the secret of what that tribe stands for. Ruvain, for being able to withstand the tshuva that he needed to go through. Shimon, realizing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even though they would be profoundly involved in the terrible activity with the Moabites. Nonetheless, they'll also receive tshuva. But Yehuda ultimately stands up as the leader of a person who's Amin Adav. I'm prepared to give myself up for my people. I wish everybody a beautiful day, and please God, we'll continue with